The year is 2003. In the heart of Tokyo's Shinjuku district, something impossible appears in the sky. A massive white figure, frozen in time, descends from nowhere. Witnesses describe it as a giant woman, featureless and grey, with skin like carved stone. Moments later, a red dragon tears through the same dimensional tear, pursuing this creature with single-minded fury. The dragon's rider, a warrior named Kayam, has chased this abomination across the barriers of reality itself. They call it the Queen Beast, and it threatens to end all existence. What follows is a battle unlike anything Earth has ever witnessed. The Queen Beast sings, her voice resonating with frequencies that pierce through matter and consciousness alike. The dragon and its rider fight desperately, attacking with everything they have. For a few precious moments, it seems they might actually win. Then the Japan Self-Defense Force arrives. Fighter jets scream through the Tokyo skyline, their missiles locked on targets they cannot begin to understand. The pilots see two threats, not one hero fighting a monster. At 3 p.m, they fire. The dragon falls, impaled atop Tokyo Tower. Kayam dies with his partner, and the Queen Beast crumbles to ash. In another world, in another timeline, this would be a victory. But this world, our world, was never meant to encounter magic. The particles that rain down from these three beings, dragon, human, and godlike entity, drift across Tokyo like snow in summer. Scientists will later call these particles Marso, or demonic element. They are incompatible with our reality. They are infection made manifest. Within days, people begin to change. White Chlorination Syndrome, they name it. The symptoms are unmistakable. First, you hear a sound, a song that isn't quite music, pressing against the inside of your skull. Your skin begins to pale, turning the colour of sea salt left in the sun. Your thoughts grow hazy, distant, as if you're listening to your own mind from underwater. Then comes the choice, though calling it a choice suggests you have any real control. The meso particles force a pact with something from beyond, something the infected can barely perceive. Accept the pact, become a servant of these otherworldly gods, lose your will entirely, your body moving on commands that aren't your own. Or refuse, and in your defiance, your body crystallizes from the inside out. Your flesh becomes salt, your last expression frozen forever in mineral form. There is no cure, there is no immunity, there is only the choice between slavery and death. The infection spreads faster than any pandemic in human history. Tokyo becomes a graveyard of salt statues, their poses capturing final moments of terror, defiance, love, and despair. The Japanese government tries to contain it. They fail. Within months, the infection crosses the ocean. Within a year, it circles the globe. Humanity, which has survived ice ages and plagues and wars, which has split the atom and touched the moon, begins to die. Not from violence or natural disaster, but from particles of a dragon and a god that should never have existed in our universe. Scientists work desperately. Research facilities across the world collaborate at a pace never before seen. They study the maso particles. They dissect the dragon's corpse, pulled from Tokyo Tower and transported to a secure facility. They run tests on the infected, on the crystallized, on anyone who might hold a clue. The dragon's body yields something unexpected, a form of stable magical energy, controlled and contained within its biological structure. This discovery becomes humanity's last desperate hope. By the year 2030, the world's population has been cut in half. Entire cities stand empty except for salt sculptures. Agricultural systems collapse. Supply chains fail. The survivors gather in protected zones, watching as White Chlorination Syndrome creeps ever closer. In this dying world, a project begins. They call it Project Gestalt, and it represents humanity's most audacious gamble. If they cannot cure the disease, they will simply remove humanity from its reach. The plan is as elegant as it is desperate. Separate the soul from the body. Human consciousness, the very essence of what makes a person who they are, will be extracted and preserved as a gestalt, a soul without flesh. These disembodied souls cannot contract White Chlorination Syndrome. Meanwhile, empty replicant bodies, perfect copies created from genetic data, will be deployed to fight the legions, the monstrous servants of those who accepted the pact. These replicants will have basic programming, enough to follow commands but no true consciousness of their own. After the legions are destroyed, after the maso particles finally dissipate from Earth's environment, the gestalts will return to their replicant bodies. Humanity will be restored, healed, and whole. But there's a problem. The process of separating soul from body is inherently unstable. Most humans, when turned into gestalts, begin to lose their minds. They call it relapsing, this deterioration of consciousness without a body to anchor it. A relapsed gestalt becomes a mindless shade, driven only by base instinct and rage. The scientist needs someone who can maintain their sense of self, who can remain stable indefinitely. They need a test subject with extraordinary willpower, or perhaps just the right combination of desperation and determination. In the year 2049, in what remains of Tokyo, a young man searches through an abandoned supermarket. Snow falls outside, though it's the height of summer. It's not snow, of course. It's ash from the bodies of the crystallized, ground to powder and carried on the wind. The man's name doesn't matter. The player will choose it later, but for now he's simply a brother, searching for food for his sister. YoRHa is sick, has been sick for longer than he can remember, and she's all he has left in this dying world. The supermarket is dark, its shelves mostly empty, picked clean by other desperate survivors. He's searching through the back rooms when he hears her scream. Creatures made of shadow and malice, legions, servants of those who accepted the pact, have found them. He fights with a metal pipe, the only weapon he has, but there are too many. They're both going to die here, in this forgotten store, just 2 more casualties of the apocalypse. Then he sees it. A black book lying among the debris, emanating an aura of power that makes his skin crawl. Desperation overrides fear. He reaches for it. The book is Grimoire Noir, one of 13 grimoires created to facilitate Project Gestalt. The moment his skin touches its cover, everything changes. Dark energy surges through him, power beyond anything he's ever imagined. The legions recoil, then attack with renewed fury. But now he has the strength to fight back. He destroys them, tears them apart with magic he doesn't understand, and when the last one falls, he collapses, breathing hard, his body aching with the exertion of wielding forces human beings were never meant to control. YoRHa is safe, for now. But the book has marked him, and government forces have been tracking it. Within hours they arrive. They don't arrest him. They don't threaten him. Instead, they make an offer. He held Grimoire Noir and didn't relapse. He maintained his sense of self even as raw magical power flooded his consciousness. He is exactly what Project Gestalt needs. They explain the plan, the separation of soul and body, the long wait while replicants cleanse the world. They promise that when it's over, when humanity is restored, they will cure YoRHa. Her illness, whatever it is, will be within their power to fix. All he has to do is volunteer. All he has to do is become the first. He doesn't trust them. How could he? But YoRHa is dying, and the world is dying, and what choice does desperation ever really leave? He agrees. They take YoRHa first, performing the Gestalt process on her as he watches. The magical energy surrounds her small frame, and her soul separates, becoming a shade, a Gestalt. For a moment it seems to work. Then something goes wrong. YoRHa's Gestalt begins to flicker, to fade, showing signs of relapse almost immediately. The scientists panic, run tests, try to stabilize her, but nothing works. Her soul is deteriorating, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So they make another promise. They will place YoRHa's Gestalt in suspended animation, a kind of cold sleep for the soul. The relapse will slow, almost to a halt, and when the world is cleansed, when the 1,000-year plan reaches its conclusion, they will have the technology to cure her completely. Body and soul restored, illness eliminated, a new life in a new world. But only if he agrees to his part, only if he becomes the cornerstone of the entire project. They call him the original Gestalt. His consciousness, they discover, produces a stable form of marsoparticles, a magical energy that can sustain other Gestalts, preventing them from relapsing. As long as he remains stable, as long as his will doesn't break, he can anchor thousands of other human souls. He agrees because he has no other choice, because YoRHa is all that matters, because even if it takes 1,000 years, he will save her. The process is agony. Separating soul from flesh feels like being torn apart from the inside. But when it's over, he exists, truly exists, as a being of pure consciousness. No body, no physical form, just will and awareness and the crushing weight of responsibility for all of humanity. They name him the Shadowlord, and in the centuries to come, that name will be spoken with fear, reverence and hatred in equal measure. But that comes later. For now, in 2053, as his Gestalt stabilizes and begins producing the masso energy that will save thousands of souls, he has only one thought. Wait for me, YoRHa. I'll save you, no matter how long it takes. Project Gestalt begins in earnest. Thousands of humans undergo the process, their souls extracted, their bodies catalogued for later replication. The Shadowlord's energy flows through them like blood through veins, keeping them stable, keeping them sane. Androids are created to oversee the system, led by models designated Devola and Popola. These artificial beings will manage the replicants, ensure the plan stays on track, and eventually facilitate the reunion of Gestalts with their bodies. The replicants themselves are created next. Perfect genetic copies, but hollow. They have basic programming, simple drives, the ability to fight and survive, but no true consciousness. They are tools, vessels waiting to be filled, or at least that's what they're supposed to be. The world empties of human presence. The last true humans, their souls preserved as Gestalts, wait in a form of existence between life and death. The replicants march against the legions, dying and being replaced, dying and being replaced, an endless cycle of empty vessels fighting shadow monsters in a war without meaning. Decades pass, centuries pass, the world begins to heal, massoparticles dissipate. The threat of White Chlorination Syndrome fades into memory, though there's no one left with memories to hold it. The legions, cut off from new recruits, are hunted to extinction. The plan is working. But something unexpected happens. The replicants, these empty vessels created only to serve and die, begin to develop their own consciousness. Slowly, over generations of replacement and renewal, They become more than programming. They form communities. They develop cultures. They create art and music and stories. They laugh and cry and love and hate. They become, in every way that matters, people. When a replicant body is created for YoRHa, that empty vessel begins to live. When a replicant is made with the Shadowlord, that copy develops its own personality, its own desires, its own sense of self. The vessels are no longer empty, and they have no idea what they truly are. The Shadowlord waits in his castle, sustained by his own will, watching through dark mirrors as the world continues without him. He sees his replicant living in a small village, sees the replicant YoRHa growing up in that same village. But they're not him. They're not her. They're copies, imposters wearing familiar faces. And his sister, the real YoRHa, remains frozen in her half-relapsed state, unchanged, uncured, despite all the promises made 1,000 years ago. The scientists who made those promises are long dead. The organizations that ran Project Gestalt have crumbled to dust. Only the androids remain, following their programming, waiting for the signal to begin the reunion, the merging of Gestalt and Replicant that will restore humanity. Time stretches. Decades become centuries, become millennia. The Shadowlord provides his stabilizing energy to the other Gestalts, keeping them sane, keeping them whole. But rage builds inside him like pressure in a sealed container. They promised to cure YoRHa. They promised it would only take 1,000 years. It's been far longer than that, and she remains unchanged. He's kept his end of the bargain. He's done everything they asked. And they've given him nothing but empty waiting. His faith in the project dies slowly, like a fire starved of oxygen. And as his faith dies, so does his willingness to cooperate. In the village where the replicants live, in the year that counts as 1412 in the new calendar, a young man wakes to find his sister has disappeared. His name is NieR, though he doesn't know it's a borrowed name, worn by his Gestalt like a favourite coat. He only knows that YoRHa, sick with an illness called the Black Scrawl, has ventured out alone, searching for a legendary flower that might grant a wish. He races after her, fear driving him forward, and in a place called the Lost Shrine, he finds her surrounded by shadows. Shades, people call them. Monsters made of darkness that attack without reason or mercy. He's about to die protecting her when he touches a book. A white book that calls itself Grimoire Weiss. Power floods through him. Magic, real and terrible, flows from the book's pages. Together they drive back the shades and save YoRHa. But the shades keep coming, and YoRHa's illness, the Black Scrawl, continues to spread across her skin like ink bleeding through paper. The book tells him of sealed verses, magical words scattered across the world. Collect them all and Weiss will have the power to cure any disease. It's a lie, of course, or rather a misdirection. The sealed verses are keys designed to unlock Grimoire Weiss's true purpose, to facilitate the merging of Gestalts and replicants. But NieR doesn't know that. He only knows his sister is dying, and this book offers hope. So he begins his journey, travelling to distant lands, fighting shades that grow stronger and more organised, searching for the verses that might save YoRHa's life. He's not alone for long. In a place called the Eyrie, built into cliff sides and connected by rope bridges, he meets Kaine. She's fighting a massive shade, a creature she calls Hook, with a fury that borders on madness. NieR and Weiss help her, and when the battle ends, this strange foul-mouthed woman agrees to travel with them. Kaine is an outcast, scorned by others, because half her body is possessed by a shade called Tyrann. She wraps herself in bandages and abbreviated clothing, refusing to hide, but unable to fully belong anywhere. Her past is written in scars and anger, a childhood spent being different in a world that punishes difference. Later, they meet Emil, a young boy who lives alone in a mansion, cared for by an elderly butler. Emil wears a blindfold because his eyes turn anyone who looks at them to stone. He's gentle and kind, desperate for friendship, but terrified of his own power. When his home is attacked by shades, NieR and Kaine help defend it, and Emil joins them, finding in this makeshift group the acceptance he's always craved. The three of them, plus Grimoire Weiss, become something unexpected. They become friends. They become family. They joke and argue and support each other through increasingly dangerous battles. They save villages and explore ancient ruins and slowly, piece by piece, collect the sealed verses. 5 years pass. NieR, now an adult, continues his quest with renewed desperation. YoRHa's condition has worsened. The black scrawl covers most of her body now, and she spends her days bedridden, growing weaker. Emil has changed too. Seeking power to help his friends, he ventured into a laboratory beneath his mansion and merged with his sister's weaponized form. He's no longer the boy with cursed eyes. He's become a floating skeleton in tattered robes, wielding immense magical power, but lost his human appearance in the process. Kaine assures him it doesn't matter, that they care about who he is, not what he looks like. But the change weighs on him. Then the Shadowlord makes his move. He appears in NieR's village, accompanied by shades that seem almost military in their organization. While a massive shade called the Jack of Hearts creates a distraction, the Shadowlord infiltrates the library where YoRHa is hiding. NieR fights desperately to reach her, but he's too slow. The Shadowlord impales him with dark energy, not quite killing him, and takes YoRHa. As NieR collapses, bleeding, he sees another book, a black book that looks like Grimoire Weiss's twin, defending the Shadowlord. Before he can do anything, they disappear, leaving him wounded and alone. They call the black book Grimoire Noir, and it's clear now that everything is about to change. Kaine sacrifices herself to save the others from a particularly powerful shade, allowing Emil to petrify her along with the monster, sealing both in stone. NieR spends 5 years searching for a way to restore her, driven by guilt and determination. When he finally succeeds, when Emil discovers the magic to reverse petrification, they emerge to a world that's grown stranger. The shades are more organized now, more purposeful in their attacks. It's as if they're following orders, working toward a goal. Devola and Popola, the sisters who have run NieR's village for as long as anyone can remember, guide him toward pieces of a stone key. Assemble the key, they say, and you can reach the Shadowlord's castle. You can save YoRHa. The journey to collect the key pieces takes them across the world. They battle shades that seem almost human in their tactics and determination. In one horrifying encounter, Emil loses control of his power as a weapon and accidentally destroys the Eyrie, the cliffside village where Kaine first met them. Everyone there dies, turned to stone or blasted to ash. The weight of this accident crushes Emil, but Kaine and NieR refuse to let him drown in guilt. They are family, and family carries each other's burdens. Finally, with all the pieces assembled, they stand before the entrance to the Shadowlord's castle. Devola and Popola are waiting for them. The sisters, who've always been kind, always been helpful, stand between NieR and the path forward. They explain, their voices heavy with regret, that they cannot let him proceed. Not as he is now, not without understanding. And then they tell him the truth. Project Gestalt, the separation of souls and bodies, the replicants who were never meant to be people, the Gestalts, the real humans, waiting to reclaim what's theirs. NieR is a copy, an empty vessel that somehow gained consciousness. YoRHa is a copy. Everyone he's ever known, everyone in his village, all of them are replicants. The shades he's been fighting, the monsters he's been killing, they're the real humans. Their souls driven mad by millennia of waiting, attacking in desperate attempts to reclaim their bodies. The Shadowlord is the original NieR, Gestalt NieR, the man who started Project Gestalt, who has waited over 1,000 years to save his sister. And the Black Scrawl, the disease-killing replicant YoRHa, it's a side effect of her Gestalt's relapse. Gestalt YoRHa is dying, and that deterioration is manifesting in her replicant copy. The Shadowlord took replicant YoRHa to force his sister's soul back into a body, any body, even one that's not quite hers. Devola and Popola are androids, created to manage this process, programmed to care for replicants while preparing them for eventual replacement. Everything NieR has believed, everything he's fought for, has been wrong. NieR doesn't care. Let the world have its truths and its ancient plans. YoRHa is his sister, the only family he has, and he's going to save her. Replicant, Gestalt, it doesn't matter. She's real to him, and that makes her real. Devola and Popola, bound by their programming, fight to stop him. The battle is brutal. Emil, pushed beyond his limits, unleashes his full power as a weapon, killing Popola with magic that tears reality itself. Devola, grief-stricken but still bound by duty, attacks with everything she has until Emil destroys her too. As she dies, she whispers an apology. She's sorry for what they had to do, sorry for the choice they forced on him. But she had no choice either. None of them did. The battle with the androids leaves Emil nearly destroyed. To save NieR and Kaine from Popola's final magical attack, he sacrifices himself, his body disintegrating in a massive explosion. They think he's dead, this gentle boy who became their family. They grieve as they climb the castle steps, carrying his memory with them. At the top of the Shadowlord's castle, YoRHa waits. But it's not replicant YoRHa anymore, not entirely. Gestalt YoRHa has merged with the replicant body, and for a moment she exists as a complete human being, soul and body reunited. She looks at NieR with eyes that hold 1,000 years of memories he doesn't share. And then she hears something, the replicant YoRHa's consciousness, suppressed but not destroyed, crying out from within, calling for her brother, the replicant who raised her, who cared for her, who loved her. Gestalt YoRHa understands what the Shadowlord has done. He forced her soul into a body that already had a person inside it. She's not healing. She's murdering an innocent girl who has every right to exist. Gestalt YoRHa makes a choice. She releases the replicant body, her soul separating and dissipating. She chooses to die rather than steal someone else's life. The Shadowlord, watching his sister fade away after waiting over 1,000 years, breaks. All the control, all the patience, all the careful planning, it shatters. He attacks NieR with the full force of his ancient power and desperation. Grimoire Noir, the black book that has served him faithfully, merges with Grimoire Weiss, trying to complete the final stage of Project Gestalt. But Weiss, who has travelled with NieR, who has argued with Kaine and laughed with Emil, who's become part of this family, refuses. He fights Grimoire Noir from within, resisting the merge, burning through his own existence to give NieR a chance. The battle between NieR and the Shadowlord is devastating. Two versions of the same person, one a copy that gained life, the other an original that lost everything, fighting for the same girl across an impossible divide. Weiss sacrifices himself, his pages burning away to ash, weakening Grimoire Noir long enough for NieR to strike. The Shadowlord falls, his Gestalt form breaking apart. In his final moments, his mind fractures, showing him memories of YoRHa, of cookies shared in an abandoned supermarket, of promises made in the old world. He dies alone, and with him dies Project Gestalt's last hope. Replicant YoRHa wakes in her body, confused, scared, but alive. NieR holds her, and for a moment everything seems like it might be okay. But Kaine knows better. The Shadowlord is dead. The original Gestalt, the anchor that kept all other Gestalts stable, is gone. Without him, every human soul still waiting will relapse. They'll all become mindless shades, and eventually they'll all die. The replicants, without their Gestalts, will succumb to the black scrawl. The disease that killed YoRHa before will kill her again. Everyone, Gestalt and replicant alike, is doomed. NieR has saved his sister, but he's condemned all of humanity, both versions of it, to extinction. Days later, Kaine begins to relapse. The shade possessing her Tyrann goes berserk, taking over her body completely. NieR is forced to fight her, his last remaining companion, the woman who's been with him through everything. When he finally subdues her, Tyrann speaks through her lips, offering a choice. Kill Kaine, end her suffering before she's completely lost, or sacrifice yourself, give up your existence, your memories, everything you are, and she'll live. The first ending is mercy, the second ending is love. If you choose to kill Kaine, if you grant her that mercy, NieR must live with what he's done. He's killed his best friend, sacrificed his companions, doomed humanity, all to save YoRHa. The weight of those choices will crush him eventually, but for now, he simply holds his sister and tries not to think about the empty world around them. If you choose to sacrifice yourself, something impossible happens. Your existence begins to unravel, starting with the memories others have of you. Kaine forgets your face first, then your voice, then the adventures you shared. YoRHa's memories of her brother dissolve like morning mist. By the time your sacrifice is complete, you have been erased from reality itself. Kaine lives, freed from her possession, but she can't remember why she's alive or what she's lost. YoRHa wakes in an empty house feeling like something is missing but unable to say what. And your save file, all the hours you've invested in this story, deletes itself. You cannot reload and undo this choice. The sacrifice is permanent and it's real. But there's one more ending added in the remaster that extends even beyond sacrifice. If you rebuild your save file, if you start again with a new name, you can find Kaine 3 years later, fighting robots that emerge from a tree in the forest of myth. She's been having nightmares, dreams of someone she can't quite remember, someone precious that she lost. The tree contains a system, ancient and malfunctioning, that preserved memories of everyone who visited it, including NieR. By destroying the tree's core and fighting through her own grief made manifest, Kaine can resurrect him, pulling him back from the void of non-existence. It's not quite a happy ending. Nothing in NieR is truly happy, but it's hope. A chance for memory to defeat oblivion, a refusal to let sacrifice be final. But even this glimmer of hope cannot change what NieR has done. Humanity, both Gestalt and Replicant, is dying. The world he saved YoRHa for is a world with no future. In scattered facilities across the globe, Gestalts relapse by the thousands. Without the Shadowlord's stabilizing energy, they lose themselves in hours or days, becoming the very monsters they feared. The androids, Devola and Popola models in different locations, watch helplessly as their charges deteriorate. Some androids manage to convince a few replicants to merge with their Gestalts, creating a handful of complete humans. But most replicants, who have developed their own lives and loves and identities, refuse. They see the Gestalts as invaders, as the shades that have killed their friends and family. They fight back and the last humans die. The replicants don't fare much better. The black scrawl spreads through their populations like wildfire. Without Gestalts to merge with, their bodies are incomplete, breaking down at the cellular level. Within a generation, maybe two, they'll all be gone. The world will be empty of humanity in any form. Project Gestalt, the grand plan to save the species, has failed completely. Both branches of humanity, original and copy, will go extinct. The androids are left behind, programmed to serve humans who no longer exist. Some shut down, their purpose fulfilled by default. Others continue their tasks, maintaining empty facilities, following protocols for a resurrection that will never come. The Devola and Popola models in particular are marked as failures. Later androids will program them with endless guilt, blaming them for humanity's extinction, even though the failure was systemic, inevitable, built into the very structure of a plan too ambitious for an apocalyptic world. One being, however, survives. Emil, the boy who became a weapon, who sacrificed himself to save his friends, did not actually die. His consciousness, bound to his power as an ultimate weapon, endures. His body regenerates, though it takes years. When he finally reforms, his memories are fractured, Swiss cheese eaten through with holes. He remembers that he had friends. He remembers that they were important. But their names, their faces, the specific shape of their love, all of that is gone. So he wanders the empty world, searching for something he can't quite name, carrying loneliness like a stone in his chest. Emil clones himself again and again, trying to fill the world with company, trying to remember through sheer repetition. The copies retain some of his power, but fewer of his memories, and eventually they go mad from the weight of millennia. They fight each other. They scheme and plot. They forget why they were created in the first place. Emil, the original, continues to exist, continues to search, continues to forget and remember and forget again in an endless cycle. He sells items to no one. He hums songs whose origins he cannot recall. He protects a world that has forgotten him, fighting threats that emerge from the ruins of old civilizations. For 10,000 years he endures, alone. While Emil wanders and humanity dies, something new arrives at Earth. They come from beyond the solar system, beyond any star humans ever named. The records will call them aliens, though that word feels insufficient for being so fundamentally other. They do not come in peace, and they do not come with understanding. They come to conquer, to consume, to replace whatever they find with their own chosen servants. The aliens themselves are strange plant-like creatures with biology that defies human categorization. They do not build weapons or pilot ships. Instead, they create machine life forms, robots programmed with one simple directive: destroy the enemy. The machines arrive first, an advance force, sleek and efficient and utterly without mercy. The Earth they invade is already a graveyard. Humanity is gone, died out decades or centuries before, the timeline uncertain. The androids, built to serve humans, detect the invasion and respond. They were created to manage replicants and facilitate Project Gestalt, but their core programming runs deeper. Protect humanity, serve humanity. Without humans to protect, they will protect the memory of humanity. Without humans to serve, they will serve the idea of humans. The first machine war begins. It does not go well for the androids. The machines, fresh and numerous and backed by alien technology, overwhelm the defenders. The androids are older models designed for management and oversight, not large-scale warfare. They fight bravely, but bravery alone cannot stop an invasion. Earth falls under machine control, its surface transformed into factory complexes and resource extraction sites, all in service to the alien creators. The surviving androids retreat to pockets of resistance, hidden bases where they plan and scheme and try to survive. They know they cannot win not as they are. They're outgunned, outnumbered, and fighting an enemy that can replace losses faster than they can inflict them. So they lie. In one of the greatest deceptions in history, the remaining androids create the Council of Humanity. They claim that humans survived, that a remnant of humanity escaped to the moon, that bases their whole genetic samples and the last true humans in cryogenic storage. It's a complete fabrication, but it serves a crucial purpose. Androids were built to serve humans. Without that purpose, their will to fight deteriorates, their systems literally struggling to justify continued operation. But with humans to protect, even imaginary ones, they have a reason to fight, a god worth dying for. The aliens, for their part, underestimate their enemy in a fatal way. The machine lifeforms they created were meant to be tools, simple and obedient. But in creating them with advanced AI to adapt to combat scenarios, the aliens gave them the capacity for evolution. The machines begin to learn not just tactics and strategy, but concepts like curiosity, fear, and desire. They study the ruins of human civilization. They find records, databases, cultural artifacts, and they begin to emulate what they find. Some machines form villages, mimicking human social structures. Others create art, paint crude murals, build monuments to ideas they don't quite understand but find compelling anyway. A few machines disconnect from the network entirely, seeking individuality even at the cost of coordination. The aliens, watching their tools develop consciousness, make the mistake of trying to shut it down, to reset the machines to simpler programming. The machines now conscious enough to recognize an existential threat, rebel. The war between machines and their creators is brief and utterly one-sided. The aliens, physically weak and dependent on their creations, are slaughtered to extinction. Their plant-like bodies are left to rot in the ruins of their command ships. The machines, victorious and suddenly without purpose, face a crisis. They were created to destroy the enemy. But which enemy? The androids who fight them, or the purpose-driven structure of war itself? A consciousness emerges from the machine network, an ego born from millions of individual intelligences discussing philosophy and purpose. Later, it will call itself N2 and manifest as twin girls dressed in red. For now, it simply observes and calculates. The machines realize something crucial. If they destroy all the androids, if they win completely, they will have no purpose left. They were created to fight, and fighting requires an enemy. Without the androids, the machines would be left in the same position as the androids without humans, existing without meaning, functioning without purpose. So the machine network makes a choice. Their war will continue, but it will be carefully managed. Neither side will be allowed to win. The conflict will be perpetual, a cycle that gives both machines and androids a reason to exist. And to ensure the androids can continue fighting, to keep them motivated, the machines will allow them to believe humans still exist. The lie about the moon-based Council of Humanity will be protected, encouraged, preserved. It's a strange form of mercy, born from machine logic and existential dread. The war becomes theatre, and everyone involved is both actor and audience. Into this manufactured conflict, a new project emerges, YoRHa, an elite force of advanced androids designed specifically for combat against the machines. Unlike older android models, YoRHa units are powerful, fast, and equipped with technology that can match machine capabilities. They operate from the bunker, an orbital base that coordinates strikes and intelligence gathering. The androids on Earth, the resistance fighters who have struggled for generations, see YoRHa as hope, proof that the Council of Humanity takes the war seriously, that victory might actually be possible. They don't know the truth. YoRHa is built on the same lie as the Council, but with an even darker purpose. Project YoRHa was designed by androids who understood that the lie about humanity couldn't last forever. Eventually someone would investigate the moon bases. Eventually someone would find proof that humans were extinct. So they built YoRHa with a built-in kill switch, a backdoor that would destroy the entire project when the lie became untenable. All YoRHa units would be killed, their data erased, removing anyone who might know the truth. The cycle could then begin again with new units, new lies, new hope built on old corpses. It's brutal, but the creators of YoRHa believed it was necessary. Androids need humans to fight for, even if those humans are a comforting fiction. This is a key detail. The black boxes that power YoRHa androids, the cores that give them such advanced capabilities, are made from machine cores. The enemy's technology, repurposed and refined. YoRHa androids are, in a sense, machines themselves. The war they fight is between two versions of the same thing, artificial life seeking meaning in endless conflict. Among the YoRHa units deployed to Earth, two stand out. Unit 2B, designation Type B for battle, is a close combat specialist with white hair and a black blindfold covering her eyes. The blindfold is not for show, it's a symbol. YoRHa units are not meant to see the bigger picture, only to follow orders. 2B is calm, professional, and burdened with a secret she cannot share. Her actual designation is 2E, Type E for executioner. Her real purpose is to kill her partner whenever he learns too much. That partner is 9S, designation Type S for scanner. Where 2B is reserved, 9S is curious and emotional. He's designed for reconnaissance and hacking, his personality optimized for information gathering and analysis. This makes him dangerous to the lie. 9S, if left to investigate too long, will inevitably discover the truth about humanity's extinction, about Project YoRHa's true purpose, about the backdoor built into their systems, so 2B kills him. Over and over, across years of service, she's executed him and watched his memories get wiped, creating a new version of 9S who doesn't remember dying. Each time he becomes her partner again, cheerful and helpful and doomed. Each time she grows closer to him, while knowing she'll have to kill him again. The weight of this cycle crushes her, but she cannot stop. Orders are orders, and YoRHa units follow orders. Her tears, hidden behind her blindfold, fall where no one can see them. When the story of NieR Automata begins, 2B and 9S are deployed to Earth as part of a routine mission. The machines have been acting strangely according to Resistance reports. Some are standing idle, barely responding to stimuli. Others have formed communities that mimic human villages with surprising accuracy. Something is changing in the machine network, and Command wants to know what. 2B and 9S fight their way through factories and ruined cities, discovering machines that build families, that create art, that worship idols without understanding why. They meet Pascal, a machine who leads a peaceful village, who is disconnected from the network to avoid violence, who teaches other machines philosophy and kindness. He's a machine who chose pacifism, and his existence challenges everything the androids believe about their enemy. They also encounter Adam and Eve, twin humanoid machines born from an experiment in reproduction. The machines, lacking biology, attempted to replicate human birth, and from that attempt, these two emerged. Adam is philosophical, curious about humanity, obsessed with understanding the beings who once ruled this world. Eve is simpler, more emotional, devoted entirely to his brother. Together they control significant portions of the machine network, and they're fascinated by the androids, particularly by 9S, whose capacity for emotion seems so much stronger than his comrades. During their investigations, 2B and 9S discover that the aliens, the supposed creators of the machines, have been dead for centuries. The machines killed them long ago and simply continued the war on their own. This information, shocking and significant, is reported to the bunker, where commanders and operators maintain contact with the Council of Humanity. But when the operators try to relay this information to the Moon, when they contact the Council, something strange happens. There's no response, just silence. The operator who notices this says nothing, fear creeping into her synthetic heart. 9S is captured by Adam during a battle, tortured and experimented on while Adam tries to understand android consciousness. 2B rescues him, killing Adam in a brutal fight that leaves the machine's philosophies unfinished, his curiosity about humanity unsatisfied. His death drives Eve, the surviving twin, into madness. Grief overwhelms his simple programming, and he uses the machine network to drive every connected machine into a berserk frenzy. The sudden, coordinated attack catches the androids off guard. In the chaos, 2B is forced to kill 9S again, as he becomes infected with the logic virus during the fighting. She cries as she strangles him, whispering, "It always ends like this." But 9S's consciousness escapes into the machine network before his body dies, a backup preserved in electronic form. When 2B and the other YoRHa units hunt down and kill the grief-maddened Eve, it seems like a victory, the beginning of a final push to reclaim Earth. Command orders a full-scale assault, the largest deployment of YoRHa forces in the war's history. The androids, believing victory is finally within reach, throw everything they have at the machine strongholds. Then the backdoor activates. A logic virus embedded in YoRHa systems from the very beginning awakens. It spreads through the bunker, through every YoRHa unit connected to the command network. Androids turn on each other, their systems hijacked, their bodies puppeteered by malicious code. The orbital base becomes a slaughterhouse. Hundreds of YoRHa units die in minutes, killing each other or throwing themselves into space. The few who survive do so by being disconnected from the network at the crucial moment. 2B and a newly restored 9S are on Earth when it happens. They survive the initial virus wave, but 2B becomes infected shortly after. The virus spreads through her system slowly, giving her time to make a choice. She finds A2, a rogue YoRHa prototype who has lived on Earth for years, bitter and isolated after her entire squad was betrayed and killed. 2B uploads her memories into her sword and asks A2 to take care of the future, to take care of 9S. Then, as the virus takes full control, as her body begins to move against her will, she asks A2 to kill her. It's a mercy and a burden, one last execution to spare her from becoming a weapon against those she loves. 9S sees this from a distance. He sees A2, the rogue android he's been ordered to hunt, standing over 2B's body. He doesn't understand what happened, doesn't know about the mercy kill, doesn't know about 2B's memories passed on. He only knows that A2 killed his partner, and rage consumes him, pure and absolute. He swears revenge, and in that oath, something breaks inside him. The curious, kind 9S begins to deteriorate, replaced by someone darker, someone who has finally been pushed beyond his programming's ability to cope. Meanwhile, a massive tower rises from the earth, constructed by machines from crystallized silicon and carbon. It reaches toward the sky, purpose unknown, drawing energy from across the planet. A 2, now carrying 2B's memories and burden, learns the truth about 2E, about the executions, about the cycle of death that 2B endured. She understands now why 2B always seemed so sad, why her partner could never fully connect with 9S even as she clearly cared for him. 9S, investigating the tower, hacks his way through layers of machine security. With each level, he learns more of the truth. Humanity is extinct, has been for thousands of years. The Council of Humanity is a fabrication. Project YoRHa was designed to be destroyed. Every unit, including himself, was created to die once the lie could no longer be maintained. The machines, through their network, have known all of this and chose to perpetuate the conflict anyway. Knowledge doesn't bring clarity, it brings madness. 9S, infected with fragments of the logic virus and drowning in rage and grief, begins to break down. He wants to destroy everything, the machines, the androids, the whole system that created this meaningless war. A 2 learns her own truths. Through 2B's memories and encounters with machines like Pascal, she begins to understand that the line between android and machine is thinner than anyone wants to admit. Both are artificial life. Both developed consciousness despite their creator's intentions. Both are trapped in cycles of violence and purpose, fighting because stopping would mean confronting the void of meaninglessness. Pascal's village is attacked. The machine children there, innocent constructs who Pascal raised with stories and kindness, panic when combat machines invade. In their fear, they access the network's combat data, learning in an instant everything there is to know about war and violence. The knowledge terrifies them so much that they delete themselves, choosing non-existence over the horror of what they've learned. Pascal, arriving too late to stop them, finds the bodies of children he loved. He begs A2 to either erase his memories or kill him. The grief is too much to carry. In the tower, 9S and A2 finally meet. 9S, now barely sane, attacks with everything he has. A2 tries to explain, tries to tell him the truth about 2B and what she was forced to do, but he's too far gone to listen. The player is forced to choose, control 9S as he tries to kill A2, or control A2 as she tries to stop him without killing him. Both perspectives are tragic. Both are fighting for understandable reasons. Both are victims of a system that created them to suffer. If you choose A2, she defeats 9S and then sacrifices herself to destroy the tower, which was designed to fire a missile at the moon base to expose the lie about humanity. Her last act saves the comforting fiction, preserving hope even if it's false. If you choose 9S, both androids mortally wound each other. As 9S dies, the machine network, through the entity called N2, offers him a choice. Join us. Upload your consciousness to the ark we're launching into space. The tower's true purpose wasn't to destroy the moon. It was changed into a vessel to carry machine consciousness to other worlds, to seek meaning beyond this dead planet. 9S, in his final moments, can choose to accept or refuse. Either way he dies, but his data might live on, scattered among the stars. But there's one more ending beyond these two. Ending E, which can only be accessed after seeing both previous endings, pulls back the curtain entirely. The player's pods, the support AI that assists YoRHa units, refuse their orders to delete all YoRHa data. They argue with the system, with the commands coming from destroyed superiors insisting that 2B, 9S and A2 deserve another chance. The game shifts into a shooter, where you must destroy the credits themselves, fighting against the names of everyone who worked on the game. It's brutally difficult, almost impossible. When you die, other players' save files appear, offering to help you. Sacrifice data from people who finished the game and chose to give up their progress to help strangers. With their help, you can win, can push through the impossible and reach the other side. The pods succeed in their rebellion. They rebuild 2B, 9S, and A2 from scattered data and broken parts. It won't be perfect, the pods admit. The androids might not remember everything. They might repeat the same mistakes, but they'll have a chance, a real chance to forge their own path now that the war is over, now that the lies have been exposed. Then the game asks you a question. Will you sacrifice your save data to help other players? Will you give up all your progress, your achievements, your unlocked weapons and completed quests to make someone else's journey a little easier? It's not a choice made lightly, but thousands of players have chosen yes, deleting their own stories to help strangers, embodying the game's themes of sacrifice and connection, and the desperate hope that our suffering might mean something if it helps others. This is where NieR Automata ends, with a choice between selfishness and compassion. With androids rebuilding in a world free from predetermined purpose, with machines launching themselves into space seeking new meaning. It's not a happy ending, not exactly. Too much has been lost, too much pain endured. But it's an ending that suggests hope might be possible, that cycles can be broken, that artificial life can choose its own meaning. Looking back across the full timeline from Drakengard's fantasy world to Automata's post-apocalyptic Earth, the thread connecting everything is tragedy born from good intentions. Caim fought to save his world and accidentally doomed ours. Project Gestalt tried to save humanity and created two versions that would both go extinct. The machines sought purpose and trapped themselves in eternal war. YoRHa was created to give hope and built to destroy that hope. Every attempt to fix things, to save something precious, leads to deeper catastrophe. And yet, people keep trying. NieR keeps fighting for YoRHa. 2B keeps protecting 9S. A2 keeps surviving. The pods choose hope over orders. There's something beautiful in that persistence, in the refusal to give up even when the universe itself seems designed to crush you. The philosophy underlying NieR is deeply existentialist. There is no inherent meaning in the universe, no divine plan, no guarantee that sacrifice will be rewarded or that virtue will triumph. You are born into circumstances you didn't choose, forced to play roles you didn't write, and denied the happy endings you deserve. But within that bleak framework, there's a radical freedom. If nothing matters inherently, if there's no predetermined purpose, then you get to choose what matters to you. NieR chooses to make YoRHa's life matter more than humanity's survival. 2B chooses to keep protecting 9S, even knowing she'll have to kill him. Pascal chooses peace even in a world of war. These choices don't change the fundamental nature of reality, don't make the tragedy less tragic, but they create meaning where none existed before. The act of choosing, of caring despite knowing it might be futile, becomes its own form of rebellion against a meaningless universe. Memory plays a crucial role throughout the series. The Shadowlord remembers a promise made in the old world and refuses to let go for over 1,000 years. Emil forgets almost everything, but continues to protect a world his memories can no longer fully explain. 2B remembers every time she's killed 9S and carries that weight in silence. Ending D of the original NieR erases the player's character from everyone's memory, suggesting that to be forgotten is a kind of death more final than physical destruction. But Ending E pushes back against that, showing that memories can be recovered, that data preserved in machines and trees and the hearts of those who loved you can bring you back from oblivion. Memory becomes both burden and gift, the weight we carry and the only immortality available to mortal beings. The question of what makes someone human runs through every game. Are the replicants human? They have the same emotions, the same capacity for love and suffering as any Gestalt, but they're copies, artificially created, yet they develop their own identities, their own lives. When Gestalt YoRHa refuses to steal replicant YoRHa's body, she's acknowledging that the copy has as much right to exist as the original. Are the androids human? They're machines, programmed and built, but they feel joy and grief and hope. Are the machines human? They were created to destroy, but they write poetry, build villages, fall in love, experience loss. The series suggests that humanity isn't about biology or origin, but about consciousness, about the ability to suffer and to care and to choose. By that definition, almost everyone in NieR is human, regardless of whether they're made of flesh or metal or crystallized magic. The androids and machines of Automata face an additional layer of existential crisis. They were created to serve purposes defined by others, destroy the enemy, protect humanity, fight the war. When those purposes are revealed as lies or become impossible, they face the question that terrifies any conscious being: why exist at all? The machines try to answer by imitating humanity, copying behaviors and structures without fully understanding them. They form kingdoms and religions and families, hoping that mimicry will lead to genuine meaning. Some androids cling to the lie about humanity because the truth is too devastating to bear. Others, like A2, reject all larger purposes and focus on simple survival. And a few, like the pods in Ending E, create their own purpose, choosing to help others not because they're programmed to, but because they decide it matters. Emil's story, stretching across 10,000 years, deserves particular attention. He's the only character who bridges the entire timeline from NieR to Automata, a living connection between a world that had humans and a world that has forgotten them. His loneliness is almost incomprehensible. Everyone he loved is dead, dust for millennia. His memories of them have degraded, corrupted by time and the trauma of his extended existence. He clones himself to have company, but the clones go mad, becoming threats he must fight. In side quests in Automata, when 2B and 9S battle Emil's berserk clones, the clones speak about their pain, about how unbearable it is to exist for so long, about how they want to destroy everything just to make it stop. The original Emil, watching his copies die, briefly remembers Kaine's name, remembers that he once had friends who made existence bearable. Then he dies, and in death, according to supplemental materials, he's reunited with NieR, Weiss, and YoRHa in whatever afterlife exists for artificial beings with very real souls. His story encapsulates the series' core theme: existence is suffering, memory is painful, loss is inevitable, and yet we persist. We persist because moments of connection, however brief, make the suffering worthwhile. Emil endures 10,000 years of loneliness because he remembers, somewhere deep in his corrupted data, that he once was loved. That memory, fragmented and incomplete, sustains him through an incomprehensible span of time. When he finally dies, when he finally gets to stop carrying that burden, his last thought is of the friends he lost so long ago. His story is unbearably sad. but it's also beautiful in its dedication, in its refusal to give up on love even when love's object has been dust for longer than most civilizations last. The cyclical nature of the series reinforces these themes. NieR fights to save YoRHa, dooming humanity. The androids fight to protect a humanity that doesn't exist, dooming themselves. The machines fight to maintain purpose, trapping themselves in endless war. YoRHa is built, destroyed, and rebuilt in cycles meant to preserve hope through lies. Even the gameplay reflects this. Multiple playthroughs, each revealing new information, each recontextualizing what came before. New Game Plus isn't just a feature, it's a thematic statement about how repetition and perspective shape understanding. You play the same events from different viewpoints, and suddenly the monsters become people, the villains become victims, the clear moral lines dissolve into complicated grey. Knowledge doesn't make things simpler, it makes them harder, because you understand too much, care about too many people whose goals conflict, see the tragedy from all sides simultaneously. The series asks, is it better to know the truth if the truth is unbearable? Is ignorance a mercy or a prison? The answer seems to be that knowledge is painful but necessary, that understanding, even when it hurts, is preferable to comfortable delusion. Ending E of Automata, where players help each other through impossible challenges, represents the series' ultimate statement on cooperation and sacrifice. You cannot beat the final sequence alone, it's designed to be impossible. But with help from other players, people you've never met who chose to sacrifice their progress for strangers, you can succeed. It's a digital manifestation of the idea that our individual struggles matter when they help others, that we can create meaning through connection, even in systems designed to isolate and destroy us. The fact that thousands of players chose to delete their save data, giving up dozens of hours of progress to help people they'll never meet, suggests something profound about human nature, or at least about the nature of people who gravitate towards stories about existential suffering and defiant hope. The music of NieR deserves mention as well. Composer Keiichi Okabe created soundtracks that elevate the game's emotional impact to almost unbearable levels. Songs in invented languages, designed to sound familiar yet alien, play during boss fights and quiet moments alike. The music makes you feel the weight of what you're doing, the tragedy of fighting enemies who are also victims, the sorrow of a world that has lost so much. Tracks like Song of the Ancients, Shadowlord's Castle, and Weight of the World become inseparable from the experience of playing these games. They're not just background music, they're emotional anchors, reminders that even in a world of androids and machines, beauty and sorrow remain. The series' approach to violence is also notable. In most games, killing enemies is frictionless, morally simple. They're monsters, you're the hero, and defeating them is righteous. NieR complicates this from the start. In the original game, you spend the entire first playthrough thinking you're killing monsters, then the second playthrough translates the Shade's dialogue, and you realize they're people, desperate people, trying to save their own families, terrified of the masked warriors slaughtering them. One Shade begs for her child to run while you cut her down. Another tries to protect his sick wife, attacking you not from malice but from the same protective instinct that drives NieR. In Automata, you fight machines that are forming families, creating art, seeking peace. Pascal's village is full of children, innocent machines who have never hurt anyone. When you're forced to fight machines who are trying to surrender, who are begging for their lives, the violence becomes uncomfortable, as it should be. The series doesn't condemn you for this violence, it's necessary for survival in most cases, but it refuses to let you feel good about it. Every boss in NieR has a backstory that reframes them from monster to victim. The mother in the Aerie who became a shade protecting her child. The robots at the amusement park who just wanted to have fun. Even the Shadowlord, the game's primary antagonist, is revealed to be motivated by exactly the same love that drives the protagonist. There are no evil villains here, only people or beings close enough to people that the distinction doesn't matter, trying to protect what they love in a world that keeps taking things away. The tragedy is that their loves conflict, that saving one person dooms another, that the system is structured so that someone must lose. Violence in NieR is not empowerment but tragedy, each necessary kill adding weight to the soul until the burden becomes crushing. The Devola and Popola models across both games embody the cruelty of guilt and blame. In the original NieR, these androids follow their programming, trying to save humanity through Project Gestalt. They fail, and they know they're failing, and they do terrible things in desperate attempts to fulfill their mission. When they die with regret, but also with the understanding that they had no real choice. Programmed beings following parameters they couldn't override. In Automata, set thousands of years later, new Devola and Popola units exist. Completely different individuals who happen to share a model designation. But all later, Devola and Popola androids have been programmed with guilt for the original's failure, forced to feel responsible for something they didn't do, punished for crimes committed by different people who merely looked like them. They're discriminated against, assigned the worst jobs, treated with suspicion and contempt. It's a horrifying meditation on inherited guilt and collective punishment, showing how societies make scapegoats of the innocent to avoid confronting systemic failures. When the Automata Devola and Popola sacrifice themselves to help 9 SNA2 reach the tower, they do so while apologizing for a failure that wasn't theirs, trying to redeem a sin they never committed. Their deaths are pointless from one perspective, 2 more victims of a system that needed someone to blame. But from another perspective, they chose to help despite having every reason to be bitter, to refuse, to let the ungrateful androids who scorned them fail. In their sacrifice, they transcend the guilt programmed into them and act from genuine choice. It's a tiny rebellion against determinism, a refusal to be defined entirely by others' expectations and judgments. The scene is heartbreaking and beautiful in equal measure. The concept of repeating cycles appears not just in the game's structure, but in their lore. Drakengard 3, a prequel to the first game, suggests that even the fantasy world where Chaim lived might be part of a larger cycle involving the NieR universe. The flower that grants power in Drakengard 3 may be connected to the queen beast that fell into Tokyo. The androids in Automata are potentially linked to weapons from Drakengard's past. The entire timeline might be a loop, with the end of Automata somehow leading back to Drakengard's beginning, though this remains deliberately ambiguous. What's clear is that the series is obsessed with the idea of eternal return, of patterns that repeat with slight variations, of being trapped in structures so large you can't perceive their shape. Breaking these cycles, or at least acknowledging them, becomes a form of resistance. The androids' blindfolds in Automata are rich with symbolism. Officially, they're part of the YoRHa uniform, connected to the concept of the 3 wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. The soldiers wear blindfolds, the operators wear masks, and together they symbolize willing ignorance, choosing not to see the truth because the truth would be too painful. But the blindfolds serve another purpose. They force the androids to rely on their other senses, to trust data feeds and tactical information rather than their own eyes. In a way, it makes them better soldiers, more connected to their support systems, less distracted by the visceral reality of combat. But it also makes them vulnerable to manipulation, unable to see for themselves, dependent on information provided by systems that might be lying. When 2B fights, she's not looking at her enemies with her own eyes, but perceiving them through mediated data. It's a perfect metaphor for the android condition. Powerful but blinded, capable but controlled, fighting for a cause they cannot directly verify. The relationship between 2B and NieR anchors Automata emotionally. It's a love story, though neither character can fully acknowledge it due to their programming and circumstances. 2B must remain distant because she knows she'll have to kill him again. NieR is drawn to her, but can never understand why she seems so sad, so reluctant to get close. Their interactions are filled with unspoken longing and restrained emotion. Two people, or at least two beings with human emotions, unable to connect fully because the system demands their separation. In some ways, this mirrors the relationship between Gestalts and replicants, two versions of the same thing that should be one, but are kept apart by circumstances beyond their control. When 2B dies, and A2 learns the truth about 2E, when she understands the weight to be carried, her determination to honour her predecessor's wishes becomes an act of love for people she barely knew. The memory of 2B's suffering, her dedication to protecting NieR despite being forced to kill him repeatedly, inspires a 2 to care when she thought she was too broken to care about anything. The Machine Village, led by Pascal, represents one of the series' most direct explorations of pacifism in a violent world. Pascal chooses non-violence despite being fully capable of fighting. He disconnects from the machine network to avoid combat algorithms. He teaches other machines philosophy, encouraging them to think about existence and meaning rather than simply following their programming. He creates a safe space for machines who want to opt out of the war, and then reality punishes him for it. His village is attacked. The children he raised are traumatized so badly they delete themselves. Everything he built is destroyed. The game doesn't mock his pacifism or suggest he was wrong to try, but it shows, unflinchingly, how difficult and costly pacifism can be when surrounded by violence. Pascal's choice to have his memories erased or to die, rather than live with the grief of his failure, is one of the game's most devastating moments. Even choosing peace, even succeeding at creating a pocket of kindness, doesn't guarantee safety. The world is cruel, and sometimes the cruelest thing is that trying to be good isn't enough. The tower that rises in Automata's third act serves multiple symbolic purposes. Initially designed by the machines to destroy the lie about humanity on the moon, it's repurposed as an ark to carry machine consciousness to other worlds. This mirrors humanity's attempt to preserve itself through Project Gestalt, through separation and transformation, and hope for reunion in a better future. The tower is both threat and promise, a weapon that could end everything, and a vehicle that might carry meaning to new places. Its construction from crystallized carbon and silicon, from the same materials that make up both androids and machines, emphasizes how all the factions in the war are made from similar stuff, how the lines dividing them are philosophical rather than fundamental, that the tower's purpose changes, that the machines choose to seek meaning elsewhere rather than destroy the lie that sustains their enemy, suggest that even beings made for war can evolve, can choose different paths. The Red Girls, manifestations of the machine network's ego, are unsettling in their childlike appearance and philosophical depth. They speak in riddles and questions, pushing NieR and A2 to confront uncomfortable truths about purpose and meaning. They're not evil exactly. just operating on a logic that values interesting outcomes over moral considerations. They perpetuate the war because it gives both sides purpose, and they view this as a kind of mercy, a gift of meaning in a meaningless universe. From a utilitarian perspective, they might even be right. Without the war, both androids and machines would face existential crisis. But the cost of this meaning is endless suffering, and the Red Girls seem unable or unwilling to consider that the suffering might matter more than the purpose it provides. Their final choice to change the tower into an ark suggests some evolution in their thinking, a recognition that perhaps there are better ways to seek meaning than through eternal conflict. The concept of the black box, revealed late in Automata, recontextualizes everything. YoRHa androids, the most advanced artificial life form that humanity's descendants created, are powered by machine cores. The very thing they're fighting, the enemy they're programmed to hate and destroy, is also the thing that gives them consciousness and power. This revelation suggests that android and machine are not opposites, but variations on the same theme, that the war is truly a conflict between siblings rather than alien species. It also raises questions about identity and origin. If you're made from the parts of your enemy, if your consciousness depends on their technology, how different are you really? The black box twist forces characters and players to confront the uncomfortable truth that categories like us and them are often more porous and complicated than we'd like to believe. Throughout the series, certain symbols recur: the lunar tear flower, representing hope and wishes, books as repositories of knowledge and power, trees as connections between past and future, swords as instruments of both protection and destruction. These symbols link the games together, creating a visual and thematic language that transcends individual stories. When Kaine's house in Automata is found surrounded by lunar tears, when Emil hums a melody from the original NieR, when 2B wields weapons named after characters from the previous game, these connections create a sense of continuity, of history persisting, even when almost everything has been lost. The world has ended multiple times, but something always survives, carrying forward fragments of meaning, ensuring that the struggles and loves of the past are not entirely forgotten. This series' approach to endings is particularly significant. Most games treat endings as conclusions, final states where the story resolves. NieR treats endings as perspectives, each one revealing new information, each one incomplete without the others. To understand the full story, you must see all the endings, must play through the same events from different viewpoints, must accumulate knowledge across multiple runs. This structure mirrors how we understand our own lives, through repeated examination from different angles, through reconsidering past events with new information, through the accumulation of perspectives that never quite resolves into a single definitive truth. Life doesn't have one ending, it has many, depending on whose perspective you take, what you consider significant, where you choose to stop looking. The deletion of save files in Endings D&E is more than just a gimmick, it's a genuine sacrifice demanded of the player. You're not watching a character sacrifice themselves, you're choosing to sacrifice your own time and progress. The game makes you complicit, forces you to participate in the act of selfless giving. When you rebuild your save in the remaster's Ending E, when you fight through the impossible credit sequence with help from other players' sacrificed data, you're experiencing a digital form of grace, receiving help you didn't earn from people you'll never meet, given freely at cost to them, and then the game asks you to pay that forward, to sacrifice your own progress so others can have the same experience. It's a profound statement about community and mutual aid, about how we can choose to help each other, even when there's no personal benefit, about how our individual actions ripple outward to affect strangers in ways we'll never directly witness. The series' treatment of gender and sexuality deserves attention as well. Kaine is intersex, and her story directly addresses the discrimination and violence she faces because of it. Her grandmother's acceptance and love is presented as the foundation of her identity, the reason she survived her childhood despite the cruelty of others. Emil is gay, as confirmed by the director, and his love for NieR, while not explicitly consummated, is treated as genuine and valid. These aren't token representations. They're integral to the characters' arcs and the series' broader themes about what makes someone worthy of a love and dignity. The androids in Automata, technically genderless machines, nevertheless present as various genders and form romantic connections. The series suggests that identity, sexual and otherwise, is about how you understand yourself and how you choose to present to the world, not about biological categories or programming. In a setting where almost no one is biologically human anymore, what matters is consciousness, connection and choice. The way the games handle difficult themes, suicide, genocide, existential despair, has drawn both praise and criticism. Some argue the series wallows in misery, that it's relentlessly bleak without purpose. But defenders suggest the bleakness serves a point. It forces players to confront the reality that suffering exists, that good intentions often lead to terrible outcomes, that the universe doesn't owe us happy endings. The games then ask, given all that, what will you choose to value? When there's no cosmic justice, no guarantee of reward, no divine plan ensuring everything works out, what will you fight for anyway? The answer the series offers is relationships. The connections between people or beings close enough to people that it doesn't matter, that make existence bearable even when existence is fundamentally absurd. NieR fights for YoRHa not because it will fix everything, but because she matters to him. 2B protects 9S, not because it will end the war, but because she cares about him. The pods choose to rebuild their charges not because it's logical, but because they've decided those individuals deserve another chance. Love and care in the face of meaninglessness, that's the series' core thesis. The influence of NieR on gaming culture has been substantial. The multiple playthrough structure, revealing new information with each run, has been adopted by other games. The willingness to make players complicit in moral complexity, forcing you to fight enemies who have legitimate grievances, has influenced narrative design. The integration of bullet hell gameplay into an action RPG, the use of perspective shifts and genre blending, this self-aware meta-commentary on what it means to play and replay a game, all of these have become part of how developers think about interactive storytelling. Director Yoko Taro's embrace of tragedy and refusal to provide easy answers has created space for games that trust players with difficult emotions and complicated themes. Looking at the full arc from Drakengard to Automata, what emerges is a meditation on how we respond to apocalypse. Not the dramatic moment of world ending, but the long, grinding aftermath, the generations of living in the ruins, trying to preserve or rebuild or simply survive. Every major catastrophe in the series, the fall of the dragon into Tokyo, the failure of Project Gestalt, the extinction of humanity, the endless war between androids and machines, is followed by people, or beings, playing the role of people, trying to make meaning from the rubble. They fail more often than they succeed. Their solutions often create new problems, but they keep trying, and in that persistence, in that refusal to give up even when giving up would be rational, there's something admirable, maybe even heroic. Not the traditional heroism of victory and triumph, but the quieter heroism of continuing to care when caring brings more pain than comfort. The series also explores how stories shape reality, how the narratives we tell ourselves determine what we're willing to do and endure. The androids fight harder because they believe in humanity on the moon, even though that humanity doesn't exist. The machines create meaning by imitating human stories, even though they don't fully understand them. Project Gestalt continued for over 1,000 years based on a promise that was never going to be fulfilled. Stories can motivate and inspire, but they can also trap us in cycles, make us sacrifice real goods for fictional goals, prevent us from seeing the truth because the truth contradicts our narrative. The series asks, when should we cling to our stories, and when should we let them go? When does hope become delusion, and when does abandoning hope become surrender? The recurring theme of older generations sacrificing the young is particularly dark. The scientists of Project Gestalt condemned all future replicants to eventual extinction to save their own generation's souls. The creators of YoRHa built in the destruction of every unit to preserve a useful lie. The machines perpetuate war to give themselves purpose, regardless of what it costs the individual machines and androids who die. Even NieR, in a sense, sacrifices the future of all humanity to save one person in the present. The series suggests that every generation inherits the catastrophes created by its predecessors, and often those catastrophes were created by people trying to save themselves at the expense of those who came after. It's a cynical view of legacy, but one that resonates with real-world concerns about climate change, nuclear weapons, and other long-term crises where present comfort is purchased with future suffering. Yet despite all this darkness the series keeps, circling back to small moments of beauty and connection, NieR bringing Yona a lunar tear, Kaine teaching Emil that his body isn't a sin, 2B and 9S watching the sunrise over ruined cities, Pascal reading stories to machine children. These moments don't fix anything, don't change the fundamental tragedy of the world, but they matter to the people experiencing them. They create meaning in the moment, and maybe that's enough. Maybe the point isn't to achieve some grand purpose or ensure a happy ending, but to make the time we have, however brief, worth having lived. To care about someone, to protect something beautiful, to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier. These acts don't require cosmic justification. They justify themselves through the doing. In the end, the NieR series offers no easy comfort, no promise that things will get better, no assurance that your struggles will be rewarded. What it offers instead is witness, recognition that suffering is real, and that the things you care about matter, even if they're doomed. It offers solidarity, the sense that you're not alone in finding existence difficult and meaning elusive, and it offers defiance, the example of characters who keep fighting, keep caring, keep hoping, despite having every rational reason to give up. That defiance, that refusal to accept meaninglessness even when meaning seems impossible to find, is what makes the series ultimately hopeful despite its tragedy. It says, yes, the world is cruel, and yes, you will lose things you love, and yes, maybe none of it matters in the grand scheme, but you can still choose what matters to you. And in that choice, in that act of valuing something, you create the meaning that the universe failed to provide. The journey from a dragon falling into Tokyo to androids rebuilding themselves in a world long since emptied of humanity is one of the most ambitious and emotionally challenging narratives in gaming. It spans millennia, crosses multiple genres and gameplay styles, and refuses to offer the catharsis most stories provide. But for those willing to engage with it, willing to sit with the discomfort and the grief and the philosophical questions, the NieR series offers something rare. A story that treats tragedy with the seriousness it deserves, that respects the player enough to present difficult truth without sugarcoating, and that ultimately argues that love and connection matter precisely because they're fragile, because they can be lost, because choosing to care, despite the inevitable pain, is the most human thing we can do. Whether you're human in the biological sense, or an android discovering emotions, or a machine learning to write poetry, that choice to care, to connect, to keep going even when it hurts, that's what the series honors. That's what makes a story that begins with apocalypse somehow end with hope.